We are filming here from Tequila in the greater Seattle area. We have 11 stores up and down the coast here, and we would love to have you join us if you're in the area, for shopping. Right now you can see us on YouTube, and this is of course live right now, but you can see it anytime on our Facebook YouTube channel. And if you are interested in any of the products that we're going to talk about today, we have a list that is going to be on our website. It is also going to be posted in the comments on this film. So if you go there, you can print out a list or view a list of all the stuff we're going to talk about today. We're going to do 3 door prizes, and if you are lucky enough to win one of those, please send us a private message to let us know where you would like to pick that up. One of our stores, or however we can get that to you. There are 3 more prizes that will be given away over the next few days. We're going to draw those on July 7th and then let you know who has won those as well. So if you would like to be entered for the door prizes, you're going to like, share, or comment on this video, and that will automatically put you into the drawing. We'd also like to see your show and tell items, so just take a picture, send it in through the comments, and you'll be entered. So my name is Gail McIshonis, and this is Lana Jones. Sit back and enjoy while we talk about all the stuff that we've done today. All right, and Lana's going to start.
Hi there, I'm Lana Jones. As Gail said, some of you know me already. And I'm going to start out with this Tote Bag. This is just a project bag, but it didn't have any handles. So I added these this gray cotton woven handles to it just to make it easier to carry around. And it's just nice and large. It's got a nice big bottom on it. This is great for your projects, taking back and forth to classes or wherever you happen to be sewing at. So just a wonderful little bag. The first book we're going to talk about is Thrib Painting a Garden Quilt. And this book has lots of beautiful designs in it, and it's all thread painting. Got it? Okay, all thread painting, and each block is a different scene from the quilt. And here's a picture of the entire quilt. At the back of the book are all the designs you need to do the particular block that you want to do, or all of them. And some of them will tell you that you need to cut 2, 4, 6, 8 of them so that you know how many that you need. Now, one thing that's very cool is this applique sheet, hot fix adhesive, can go through your printer. So you can take the page out of here and just send it right through your printer and print it on here, and then fuse it to the back of your fabric, and you're ready to go with your applique. So this is one of the Gail's sheets that she did. She can just send that right through the printer, print it right on this, fuse it to the back of her design, and send it through the cutter. So just a great way to do that. The piece I did is right here. This is block number 2. And one of the things she says in her book is there's lots of things you can do. This is a thread painting book, but you can also do coloring first. And one of the things she mentioned is Prismacolor and Prismacolored pencils. And I like Prismacolored pencils. I have them, but my favorite ones for coloring on fabric is Inktense by Derwent. And so I've cut out all my fabric, and I'll show you this process here in just a moment. And all my fabrics were really plain because I knew I was going to use the colored pencils on top of it. So the process was to cut out all my fabric, then color them with the Inktense pencils, and then I put a fabric medium over that, and I'll show that here in just a moment. And then I free motion stitched everything. Some of it I free motion stitched really heavy, and some of it really light. And then I did some machine beading for the centers of the African violets. Okay, so over here, let me show you what I did. We have this applique pressing sheet, and this is great for pressing your appliques on. It doesn't get fusible webs on your ironing board or anything, but it's also great for protecting your surface when you're doing painting or coloring. Okay, so I have my piece of cotton here, and I have my Inktense pencils, and there are 72 colors in the Inktense pencil line. And you can pick obviously whatever color you want. I'm just going to do a little bit of coloring here, and then I'm going to show you how I blend with it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is, this is fabric medium, and mine is an older bottle of fabric medium, but you can tell it's been quite used over the years. It's an old Martha Stewart bottle. And you can take your colors and color right on. Now I'm just pretend I have a design on here, and you can color right over your fabric and pull in all the colors that you want. And then after I put down my light color, I like to go to a darker color. So like if this was the center of the flower, I'm going to add a little bit of darker down here. And then I might add a little bit of white at the top to really lighten that, so that's where the sun is coming. So I'm going to color that for a little bit. And then I'm going to take my paintbrush. And what I did in the small areas, I used a size 1/8 inch angle to get in the really small areas. And in the larger areas, I used a 6 or a 10 filbert. Okay, I'm just going to grab my big filbert here, and I'm going to take up a little bit of the fabric medium, and then I'm going to paint. And you can see how the colors come alive once you start painting with it. Okay, what this does, besides blending the colors, you can see quite a bit of difference there. What this does besides blending the colors is it also makes the colored pencils permanent on the fabric. Once this dries, then I'm going to press it, and that will make it finish the process of making it permanent. Okay, now I wouldn't throw it in a washing machine at all. I would hand wash it. Okay, but you can see quite a bit of difference between the original color, and let me throw a little bit of that out here. You can see quite a bit of difference between the original color and after you put the medium on there. Okay, it really blends beautifully and makes just a fabulous painting. And let me clean my brush here so I don't damage my brand new brushes. Okay, and so that works out really well, and then you have a beautiful thing. Also, I'm going to show you really quickly here, when I do some coloring, sometimes I use fabric markers. And because some people are very scared of color, and I get that. You buy a color pack that has 72 colors and it has 5 pinks, which pink do you use? Or 20 blues, which blue do you use? A fabric marker set is easy because there's not that many colors, okay? And the problem with the problem and difference between them is I can put this on really lightly. I can put paints on really lightly and inks really lightly because I can tap off the extra. With markers, the minute you hit your fabric, it floods in there. So you want to be careful, and you want to just barely touch your fabric. Okay, it's still, see how much it's coloring a lot darker than it would if I was using the other. But while it is still wet, I can grab the other markers and blend those in a little bit. So not as many colors, pretty easy to do. If you're new with coloring, the markers is a great way to go for all your coloring needs, because it's just not as many colors in these small packs. So give that a try, and it is a lot of fun. I want to show you here quickly. These are the colors of fabrics I started with. For mine, pretty plain and pretty boring. Okay, but after I painted them and free motion stitched over them, they came alive, and that's the fun part. This part was the boring part. The fun part was the painting and the free motion stitching. Okay, so now Gail's going to talk about her piece.
Yes, and I had fun as well. So there's many different techniques that she shows in her book of how to do that. And I don't know if you want to get a real close up so you can see Lana's after the fact, after she's colored it and added her thread on here. Just amazing. It really does come to life. You've got the dark colors in here and the medium colors. And that all started from one color of thread. One color of fabric, but by adding her colored pencils and her threads, you can see depth, and it really brings those flowers to life. So over on my piece, I have, this one's still a work in progress. Here is the base of what my fabrics looked like before I did any thread painting or coloring, and this looked exactly the same before I added thread to it. And there's all sorts of different flowers. There's still, a bit of stitching to do. My cute little bird needs some details, but you can really add shadowing and get a lot of depth by adding color. So over at the machine, I'm going to show you how to thread paint. for the sunflower, and I have put on my machine, yeah, I made it bigger. I have a spring free motion foot. This is a performance, soft performance icon. And I have my fabric here. I've also put in a different needle. This is, yes, we're mixing and matching browns. This is a Janome purple tip needle. And this has a special tip on it that allows you to go through thick layers of fabric, do free motion stitching, quilting, and not have as many skipped stitches. It's a special shape. I was really impressed with that. So I've set my machine up for a straight stitch, drop the feed dogs. So I'm actually going to move the fabric myself. And Lana did a lot of straight line quilting. First thing I did was secure the edges of my my leaf. So you can add thread color just by going straight back and forth, and I'm controlling my stitch length by how fast I move my fabric. But she also talks about a different stitch in there, and I'm going to put it on a zigzag, but I'm still controlling my stitches. So I'm going to stitch this sideways. Okay, so this is a zigzag, but I'm going to move my fabric sideways. Now I've got a little bit of blue bobbin popping up. I would probably put in a matching bobbin, but I didn't wind one before I started here this morning. But it's going to let me add thread in a back and forth manner with the larger stitches without having to jerk my fabric back and forth doing a straight stitch. So you just want to keep in mind that this is my zigzag. I'm not going to travel in this direction. Okay, I'm going to travel in this direction. Sometimes I kind of go a little bit at an angle. Okay, and then I am using bright yellow right now. Then I would add in gold, and then I would add in a little bit darker, and then I would finish off with a very, very dark to do my outlines and my, final stitching, just to kind of, it's like drawing a line around everything. So that's how we do free motion stitching. All right, now I've lost my schedule.
I am.
Okay, so back over to Lana, and
we brought in the design, Quilting Designs 3 by Purely Gay. I love quilting designs or redwork-like designs because it leaves lots of opportunities for creativity. And there's several things that I did with that. And the first one I want to show you is this little quilt up here. And these are the designs that were from the CD, and I picked several of them. I picked a 5x7 and a 7x7, or 5x5, excuse me. And then I painted them with the fabric markers over there, and you can see that this was actually supposed to be a blue-green, but I toned it down with yellow. And then what I did for the pinks with the fabric markers, because there's just not a lot of choices in that grouping, I put brown along here to give it some depth, and then I did the outer edge a couple of times to darken it a little bit, and then I added hot fix stones and a couple dragonflies, and then I also put on the quick bias as dividing lines here, because I just thought that looked so cool to have the dividing lines in there. So very fun piece to do. I also did the border of this kitchen towel. Now both of my machines are 6 needles, and they are older, so they have no technology for placement. And I had to hoop this twice. All I have is the arrow keys, and it was able to match them up perfectly and get them all lined up for a perfect border across my towel. I also did some cards. And I like to make cards. I don't send them to anybody. I just like to make them. I have a stack of cards I've made and I've sent them nowhere. But this first one I colored with neon color markers. And I thought that turned out really great. Stitched it on there, and I'll tell you in a minute how I stitched it on there. And then this one I stitched on there and with silver Kingstar metallic thread, and then I colored it with a Sharpie metallic. Okay. When I make my cards, I get a 11 by 17 inch cardstock, and it's 80 pound works great. You could use 100 pound as well, but I use 80 pound, and I buy 11 by 17 paper, and then I cut it down to 8 by 15. Okay. Then I score it so I have 3 5-inch pieces, or 3 5-inch sections, I should say. And then when I embroider in the middle. Okay, so all my embroidery is done in the middle. I do all my coloring. I get that all done because now all the stabilizer and everything is on the back, right? All the stabilizer and the cutting of threads and all that is on the back. So then what I do, and I use a cutaway stabilizer and no-show mesh, because if I use a tearaway with a tearable product, it's going to tear. So I use a no-show mesh so that I have more substance in my card, so I have less chance of it perforating and falling out. So once I'm done with that and I've got it all ready and I'm ready to make my card, what I do now is I take my piece of paper that probably has my saying on it that I've already printed out of my computer, okay? And I take that and I cut it to the size I needed for the card I made, and then I glue this tab right here over to the center section. And now when I bring this section over and glue it in place, now I have this perfect card. You can't see the stabilizer, you can't see the any of the bobbin thread or anything, and the card looks just really spectacular. And you have lots of room to write if you need to. Okay, so I just thought that turned out just really great. And this particular one, I made a mistake. I cut this side too short, and so I had to put a little filler in there. Okay, so we do what we have to do to make things work, right? Okay, so that's a great way to make cards, and then you don't have any of the background showing when you're all done.
All right, so with my Quilting Design 3 collection, where did I put my, oh, right there in front of me. I embroidered out the fabric ahead of time. So I took about 6 hoopings and I just laid them, kind of panel style, and then laid out the pattern pieces for my bear. I drew around them. Then I knew what to color and where to color. So half of the back and half of the front on my little stuffed bear is done with that quilting. And then of course I colored them with the markers. So any way that you would like to color works just fine. Now the pattern itself is in our next book, which is our fat quarter. Oh, it's on the stand, that's why I can't see it. Is our Take 2 Fat Quarter Gifts. So this book has lots and lots. This is from Search Press, and 16 projects. I think we wanted to do every single one of them. So lots and lots of things that you can do with 2 fat quarters, or you can just use your own fabric. So this was a velour that I used on the teddy bear. And then I have a little grandson. I don't have any little granddaughters. So instead of a little dress, I did a paint shirt. So I left the back open and put lots of pockets on here so that you could just throw that on and get all sloppy, paint or chalk or whatever. There's actually little channels in the pocket up here for crayons. So I forgot the crayons. And then the shorts to go with it. So we've got the cute little numbers. Now for pockets, I have a cute or an easy, quick technique for making pockets, and I'm going to show that to you over there on the machine. But before we go there, I'm going to just show you the clutch, because the clutch is also in the book. So this uses one of those clasp frames that you open up, and I happen to decorate mine with one of our other embroideries that we'll talk about here in a minute. It has piping, it has a big gusset on the bottom. I happen to sew this one out of silk. So it's a dark chocolate colored silk, but I'm ready for an evening out. So cute clutch. Now that we can go out. All right, so let's go over here and show you those pockets. Oh, the bear. Oh, yeah. So this is some of that velour. Sorry, I lose my train of thought. Every time you go around corners, when you're going to turn your bear, you got the belly, you've got the arms and legs, you either have to take a regular straight pair of scissors and put a bunch of little clips in that curve, or pinking shears. So this is the Kai pinking shears, and I'm just going to cut around the curve, and I would do this at about 1/8 of an inch around the seam allowance, and then I've got all of those little cuts in there for me, and I don't have to notch it out and clip, one little piece at a time. So always wonderful scissors from Kai. All right, we have a door prize, and then we'll wander over to the machine. So congratulations to Sherry Fulton. We have wonderful one-patch quilts, so please send a private message through the comments and let us know where you would like us to send this to be picked up. Okay, so we'll wander this way. So I have a piece of fabric. This is one single piece of fabric that is going to be twice the size of my pocket. This is going to be the size of my pocket. So I'm going to fold it up, and I've drawn on here with marker of where I'm going to sew. I'm going to start here, and I'm going to sew there and there, sew there and in there. This just needs to be wide enough to turn it inside out. So I'm going to do that real quick. We'll go up and down one side. Forgot to turn off free motion. There we go. And we'll do needle down. All right, this machine hovers. So I'm going to back up here, make sure I have that nice and secure, and start here. And go to the edge. Okay. Now I'm going to make a couple little clips. I'm going to clip these little corners here, and I'm going to cut off these corners here. Now, to make it really easy at the when we're done, before I even turn this inside out, I can go to the iron, or I can just use my fingernail right here. And I'm just going to do a little finger press right along that line. If I want, if I have a big long piece, I do this with anything I turn inside out, I can use just a little bit of Fusible right here, and I can iron that on ahead of time so that when I go to turn it inside out, it's already there. So fold that one too. All right, then I'm going to turn it inside out. Just get my finger in there, turn the corner, and I have our bodkin here, and I'm going to poke out those corners. Now, I don't have to finish sewing this hole either by fusing it or sewing it up, because that is going to end up being the bottom of my pocket. And I have forgotten a piece to sew it to, so we're going to sew it to this. So remember, there's the opening. First thing I'm going to do is seal up the top, and this is just for looks, really doesn't do a whole lot, keeps it from folding over, and I like to run 2 lines here. Beautiful blue bobbin thread. Okay, so there's now the top of my pocket. That was the fold. There's my opening. And when I fasten this down and make the sides and bottom of my pocket, I'm going to sew that opening closed all at the same time. And that makes a really quick pocket. So I have one in the inside of my purse. You can put it on pants, you can put it on shirts, you can do anything. So makes a quick thing. All right, so I believe we are over to Lana.
Okay, I have several demos to show you on this particular book, but I'm going to show you all the samples first. Okay, I'm going to start out with this little makeup bag. It's called a cosmetic pouch, and it has a self-covered button and just a cute little pouch, and it has a little ribbon that goes around the button. And I want to show you the inside, if you can see this, how neat and tidy it's closed up where I turned it. You can hardly even see the stitching. I don't hand stitch unless I have to, and I will show you some hand stitching that I actually did, but it turned out really cool on the inside. I'm going to demo how I did that in a minute. They also said to put cardboard in the bottom. The problem with putting cardboard in the bottom of a cosmetic pouch is when you go wash it, that cardboard's going to get mushy. So what I did was I put 2 layers of Craftex. So now it's firm on the bottom and Craftex is washable. So I'm not going to have any problems in washing this. I also did the makeup roll kit, and this turned out super cute because I used sparkly elastic, and it has this little flap that goes over your makeup brushes and stuff, so the makeup doesn't get everywhere all over the place, and it has these little pockets. Okay, so that turned out really, really cute. And fun to make. I think these 2 items would be very easy for beginning sewists to make them. There's a lot of projects in here I think beginning people who are beginning to sew can make. This tote bag is another one. This is made with ticking. If you don't know what ticking was made probably, it came to the US in the 1600s. And what ticking is a very tight woven fabric that was used on mattresses and pillows, so the down feathers wouldn't poke through. Okay, so I have the ticking on the outside. Now this wasn't lined in the book, but I did line mine as I just like my bags lined. And then I put in a pocket as well. That pocket is in the instructions to put that on there. And then I put on woven cotton handles to go all the way under and around the bag to finish the bag off. I thought that turned out really good. I don't know if those pins are going to hold up there. This lunch bag, I loved this lunch bag. I just thought that turned out adorable. And it has the flying geese on it. And I just did plain quilting on the back. And just nice light colored binding so I can see inside. But I love the way she did the flying geese. And the flying geese, the way it's done, and I'm going to refer you to a video here in just a second, so I'm not going to do a demo on this because we have a great one on our YouTube. You're starting out with a block of fabric. I want to say it was 8 by 8. So that's the blue dotted fabric. And then in each corner, you're going to put 2 smaller pieces of fabric and then stitch on either side of center, cut it up. And then you're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Super easy way, fun way to make your flying geese. And Riva Flood has done a very cool video on 6 different ways to do flying geese. Partway through that video, she shows this technique. So instead of me repeating that, she did such a fabulous job. I want to say, let's see, I wrote in my notes. She posted that video on June 22nd of last year, so it's a very current video. And take a look at that. She did an amazing job showing you how to do the flying geese. Okay, so I like the flying geese technique so well that I did this little quilt. This quilt is not in the book, but I did it because I wanted to do the flying geese again. And all the fabric that you see with the bicycles, the gold, the stripe, the flowers, that all came from our Bellingham store. They now have fabric. So thank you, Pam, for showing me this fabric. And isn't that just the cutest fabric with the bicycles and stuff on it? So what I did was I used the flying geese for the top and bottom of the quilt. And then I used a twin needle 4.0 with twin needle, 100 needles. And I used ruler work with a twin needle. So I put on my westerly foot, I put on my 4.0 twin needle, and then I got out and I used my Curvilicious ruler because I like the curve on that really well. It's just a nice soft curve. And I used that for my quilting with the twin needle on my quilt. And then I also used it to go around the edge of my border. Thank you. My border. But I also want to show you, and let me take this down so I can get it close to the camera. I also want to show you that when I got to the corner, if you can see that, I turned the corner with the twin needle doing ruler work. I thought that was like super cool. I would have to say I was impressed with myself when I did that. That was very fun. So now the one thing when you're doing a wide border like this, I don't have binding on it. And when you turn it to the back, there is no ditch to stitch in, okay? And I'm not stitching this down by hand. I know a lot of you love to do that. It's very relaxing for you, but handwork is not relaxing for me. I'm a machine person. I love to do everything by machine. So I did a blind hem, and you can't see the blind hem that I did to tack down my my self-mitered binding. Now, one of the things, I have a video that is posted April of last year, showing you how to do the blind hem. And in that video, I say that you have to leave long tails because you can't turn a corner. I actually lied because I played for a while when I did this, and I figured out how to turn a corner with doing a blind hem and still binding it down. So I'll have to do a video on that because it's a little tricky, but it's super easy once you figure out how to do it. So I was able to turn the corner. So look at the video, just ignore the part that I said you have to leave the thread tails. So the blind hem worked great to tack that down, and so I have no sewing on the front of this. I actually went crazy with this book.
We did have a customer ask where you got your ticking fabric from.
I got my ticking fabric from Mill Ends probably 10 years ago, okay? But it's still available all over the place, and Mill Ends still has that down in Oregon. So the question was, where did I get the ticking fabric from? And the ticking fabric I got at Mill Ends down in Oregon, but I have seen it a number of places, and it is always striped. The black fabric that is at the bottom of that, that's not ticking, but it was in the ticking area, and it went with everything, so I bought it. So it's just great fabric, very tight woven, nice fabric to work with. It's being used very popular now in home dec. Okay, so I also made the bear, and nothing spectacular. Okay, mine's pretty boring compared to Gail's, but they were really fun to make, weren't they? They went together super easy. If you are a confidence beginner, you could make the bear. It was very fun.
Just 2 pieces. Huh?
Yep, just 2 pieces. It was just like super easy. Two patterns. I also made this pillow. Now the pillow is not in the book, just like that. My little quilt is not in the book. But they talked about piping. They used a lot of piping, so I decided I would put piping on this pillow. And I want to show you a little bit about piping as well. In a moment here, I'm going to show you several things. And let me make sure I got through all my samples I made. Here, that was the last one. Okay, so over here, I want to show you the piping tool. and it is called the Grooven Piping Trimming Tool. Okay, and let me show you how I do it. My daughter, when she was little, whenever she wanted to do something, I do it. Okay. All right. So first I'm going to show you how I set it all up. Whenever I'm doing anything home deck, I like a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I think a 1/4 inch is a little too small when you're manipulating around the corners and stuff, so I like a 1/2 inch. So I have my piping here, and I have my piece of fabric. This is 2.5 inches wide. And I'm going to be using Easy Seam 2. It's nice 1/2 inch fusible web. And what I do then is I put that on, not almost to the center, but not quite the center of my strip. Okay, so that's fused on there. And then I am going to take that off, and I'm going to put that piping in the middle, and I'm going to roll that over and make sure my fabric edges are even. And then I'm going to press that. That is going to seal my piping in there. I don't have to worry about it moving anymore. Now it's fused in there and it's not going anywhere. Okay, so now once I get that all fused in there, okay, now I'm going to take the piping tool and I'm going to use the 1/2 inch side. Okay, I'm going to put that on my piping. There's a little groove in there. And I'm going to trim my piping. Oops, I need a new blade on this. Did you notice that? I need a new blade. Okay, and now my piping is ready to insert into my project. Now the one thing when you're inserting piping into your project, when you first put it on, like on my pillow, I have to baste it in there. Then I have to put the ruffle on it, and then I have to put the back on it. So I'm sewing that 3 times. If I butt up right next to this with the very first sewing, by the time I get to the 3rd sewing and I open it all up and turn around the right sides, I'm going to see that first stitching, excuse me. So I'm going to start my stitching a little bit away from the piping. So the first couple of stitchings will be out here in my seam allowance just a little bit. Then when I put the backing on, then I'm going to butt up really close to the piping so that it gets in there nice and snug and isn't loose at all. So never start your stitching right up next to that. Okay. Now another thing that we brought in was the Sashiko designs by Pfaff. These are just absolutely outstandingly beautiful. And they're all embroidery. And what I decided to do was use them on the Christmas crackers that are in the book. Now what a Christmas cracker is, it's just a tube that you fill up with candies and small presents and prizes and stuff and give it as gifts. Okay, so I decided to use them on my Christmas crackers. And this is stitched with metallic thread, King Star metallic thread, my favorite. And so this is one of the designs across here. I use twin needle decorative stitches because I am a decorative stitch nut. I love decorative stitches. I use twin needle decorative stitches on here. And this is a piece of, it's not really crystals, although it looks like crystals. You can buy this at the hobby store. You can get them at anywhere from 6 inches wide down to really narrow. I always buy the real wide stuff so I can cut it down. And then I glue it down and then I stitch right in between all of these to tack it on there. And then I use a decorative stitch on either end. When I decorative stitch on either end, I'm going to put a piece of tearaway stabilizer on the edge and then just stitch right along the edge to finish that off. So this is one of the designs from the Sashiko. Let me go to this one. This is another one. This is one of the bigger designs, and you can see I put a hot fix crystal in the center of each one. And then these are reusable. What I did, and I don't know where my little thing went. Oh, here it is. Do you know when you get boxes from deliveries and it's such a good box, you have to keep it? So you put it with the other 30 good boxes that you have kept from all the deliveries, right? We have to keep those boxes because they're so good. Well, tubes are like that for me. If it is a good tube, I have to keep it. Okay, and so this is from the stabilizer because the toilet paper rolls she suggests, toilet paper rolls are pretty flimsy these days and they're pretty small. And so the stabilizer rolls are much firmer and more resilient. I mean, I can't even crush that with my hands. Okay, so I took my stabilizer roll, and I have a great big roll, but you can get the smaller ones. And I cut this with a utility knife into 4 pieces. Okay, and so that's what's on the inside. So this is reusable over and over again. Once you gift it to someone, they could refill it and gift it to somebody else. The third one here also uses the sashiko design, and then it uses decorative stitches up here, and then this is the ribbon stitch on the foff. Isn't that just a beautiful stitch? I'm going to show you how that's done here in just a moment. And then again, across the top and bottom, I used a decorative stitch with tearaway stabilizer underneath to finish off each end. So to do the ribbon stitches, get to the ribbon stitches on my machine here, and I'm going to do that one. What the ribbon stitch is, if you noticed on the sample there, it lets you put ribbon within the stitch itself. Okay, you want to use stabilizer because it is embroidery. Decorative stitches are embroidery. In an embroidery that you do with a hoop and an embroidery machine, the hoop moves back and forth. In decorative stitches, the needle moves back and forth. It still puts stress on the fabric, and you still need to have stabilizer. Okay, so I'm just using a tearaway stabilizer here on this. And I have selected one of my ribbon stitches right here, number 6. This is the same one that I used on my Christmas cracker over there. Okay, and what you first do is you want to use a 2 to 5 millimeter ribbon. Okay, so I've got this nice little ribbon here. And so the first thing you do is you let it stitch. You can see it walking across the fabric. When it stops, and you should work with needle down, forgot that, sorry. Then you take the ribbon, and you can see the stitching right there going off to the left and up. You're going to put your ribbon right next to the needle in that direction, and then you're going to stitch again. The only thing you have to do is turn the ribbon and make sure the fabric goes straight. Okay, so now I'm going to take this ribbon, I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to follow that line again, snug it up next to the needle, and stitch again. And keep my fabric as straight as I can. Okay, and then flip it over and tuck it up next to the thing. And you want to pull that a little bit firm, but not so much that you pucker the fabric. Okay, and one more time here. Okay, and you can see where the ribbon is just enclosed in there, and this would go this way and finish off. And isn't that just a great technique? Just absolutely love that. Okay, so I think, Gail, you want to show your sashiko?
I can do that. Did you want to do the blind hem while you were?
Oh, I have to set it up for the blind hem, so
Okay.
go ahead.
We also, congratulations, have another winner, Denise Gilbertson. You have a book. This is Flying Geese and More. Hey, that goes right into the Flying Geese idea. Lots of things to do with those blocks once you get them put together. All right, let us know, private message on how to get this to you. Okay, sashiko. So I mentioned earlier I have the clutch. This is in the book, and I don't know if you got the idea that the Christmas crackers are also in the Too Fat Quarter book, and so is the clutch. The piping that she mentioned is around the edges of that, and the whole body, again, I took the embroidery design and I created my own fabric, basically. I took my silk and I hooped it with fusible fleece. I did not put any stabilizer, I did not put anything else, I just put these 2 layers into my hoop. And I used a metallic thread from Kingstar, and did this hourglass design. I think there was a couple of hoopings on here that I combined in my machine. I had a big enough hoop. What that allowed me to do was it almost looks puckered, and that was intentional. So I have all of my little texture, and that goes with that, along with that pretty metallic thread, and the lining covers up everything on the inside of that purse. So also in the design collection we have some medallion type designs, and this is again on the Sashiko. And so I did one of those on felt, 2 layers, and cut away one of the layers. So I had white felt in the hoop, and then I had blue over the top, did the design, cut around the edge of the blue, and then I mounted that circular piece of white felt to a piece of cardboard and stuffed it with batting, and then hot glued it in here. Now in the book they talk about a pincushion in a mug, and I didn't have a mug the right size, but I did have a bowl. So this is kind of that Japanese flair. It kind of goes in with the Sashiko idea. Besides, you need a big pincushion if you're in my sewing room. Anyway, each petal on here allows me to put a different type of needle or pin and keep them all separate as a bonus. So I have that. All right, did you have that blind hem set up? All right, Lana is going to show you the blind hem.
Okay. Whoops, what side do you want to be on? It doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I closed up the bottom of my bag. You can see it's very neat and tidy in there. No hand sewing, and it's just all closed up perfectly. Okay, so let me show you the steps I went through. First of all, when I first sew my seam, I sew a regular stitch length here, and then I baste my opening closed, and then I stitch over here. And then I press it open, so I have a nice line on each piece, so I know where I'm actually supposed to fold it. If I don't press this, I'm just folding blindly, okay? So I always baste across my opening and then press it open so I have my lines. Whether I'm hand stitching the item closed or I'm doing it this way, I have a nice line to follow. After that, then I remove my basting. Okay, and once my basting is gone, I have my nice opening, okay? And I have my press creased line, so I know exactly where this is supposed to be. I set my machine up for a blind hem, and the width is 2.0, and the length is 6 millimeters. And I have this turned all the way to the back, I think. I can't remember. My foot's already set up at home, so we'll have to see if this is going to work the way I want it to. Okay. All right, so now when I blind hem, it's going to start, and the first stitch is going to go into the fabric, and then it's going to take 6 stitches in the air. As long as it is stitching, well, actually the first stitch is outside, then it goes inside. As long as it's stitching and the fabric is moving, it's not going to get all caught up. So it's going to take a stitch, and then it's going to go over and take a stitch in the fabric. Then it's going to go over, oops, and then over and catch the fabric, and over and catch the fabric. You should always pull your threads up first. That's why I got that little knot back there, but this is only a sample. Okay, and you want to make sure that your fabrics are even, which I didn't do that. Talking too much. Okay, so part of it will be good and part of it won't be. Part happens with a demo. Make sure all your fabric edges are even. I could tell by the sound that it wasn't catching both pieces. Okay, so that should be good enough. All right, so this is what happens when you talk and you don't pay attention, and this is what happens when you do it right. So let me just show you the right part. Okay, so right there, you can see where it's caught both sides, and it is just perfect. Okay, that's a great way to close it up, but you always have to make sure, and this is why this happened here, that because I was talking, I didn't make sure that these pieces were even. Okay, so I did down here. Isn't that a great way to close up that bag? So then you have a nice closure, and if I had white thread on here, you would hardly see that. This is also how I do my blind hem on the backs of my quilts. So my stitch length is 6.0, my stitch width is 2.0, and this is exactly how I do my blind hem. I make sure that the binding and the quilt are even, and I stitch right along the edge there, just like this. Okay? Oh, my drop quilt. Okay. This is the pattern that we're doing right now, drop. And I thought it was fun. And then I saw the back all done in blue and went, oh, I love this quilt. Blue is my favorite color. And this quilt is so Washington, okay, with all the rain on here. And the fabric that I used was Marcia Derse, D-E-R-S-E, okay? And I love all her different fabrics that she creates. I just think they're beautiful. And so everything is a Marcia Derse fabric. And what I did after I got it all pieced, and I'm going to show you how I pieced the curves here in just a minute. I decided when I quilted it, I wanted the quilting to look like rain. The best machine for that is a Sashiko machine because of how it stitches. You can tell that it looks more like rain. I use both metallic silver and metallic light blue thread for the quilting. And if you are from Washington or been in Washington any length of time, you know that you can stand and look out your front window and it will be raining. And you go to your back door and look out your back door and there's no rain. Okay, that's just what happens around here. So when I quilted this, I wanted that effect. So I started up here with really heavy quilting with the Sashiko machine. And then as I moved this direction, I got lighter and lighter until I have no quilting over here other than just stitching in the main blocks. This is a little bit loose. I'm not sure I like that, but it is just stitched in the blocks because I didn't want any quilting over here because this is my back window. Okay, there's no rain on this side. And piecing this together was just really fun with all the different sizes of fabrics and all the beautiful blues. But when I did the curves, I like doing curves, but the problem with curves is you can stitch the curve to pieces and not pin it. The problem with that is if your blocks are to be a certain size, then you trim it down to that size. These blocks, the pattern for this was the block. There is no trimming afterwards. You have to sew straight and sew curvy perfectly. That's not going to happen with me. I need a little bit of trimming room. So what I did was I moved my needle to a scant 1/4 of an inch, and that gave me just the little bit I needed to do trimming to square up my blocks, because I had to have just a little bit of room for squaring up my blocks. So I want to show you how I did my things. I got a couple tips for you. Nothing spectacular as far, as a really unique way to do it, just a couple tips to make it easier. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to obviously cut out your blocks, and then you're going to pin them. I'm going to crease them, the center of each one, just fold it in half and crease it, and then I'm going to pin it. And I'll explain why my pins are going this way. Normally my pins would be going this way, and I'll tell you why they're going this way. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch foot, and I didn't bring my scant 1/4 inch foot, but I would use my scant 1/4 inch foot on this, just because I need the extra room. Okay, so I've got that pinned. Now when I pin the rest of it, my first pin is going to be about a 1/2 inch away from the end that I'm starting at. Okay, then at the other end, I'm going to pin really close to the end. Now, on one video I saw, the lady had put pins every 1/4 of an inch. I don't want to do that. That's too much pinning. But if you're comfortable with that, that's okay. I personally did not want to do that. Okay, so now when I start this part, I have enough room to start and go and get my stitching started before I pull my first pin. Okay, so now I'm going to, oops. Okay, so now I can get started with my first pin, and I would use a 2.0 stitch length. Now, one of the things that I noticed a lot when I was using my 1/4 inch foot, if I pinned this way, I couldn't get close to my needle, okay, because the pin was in the way. With the pin pointed the other way, look at, I can get really close to the pin before I have to pull it, okay? And that was the thing that would drive me crazy with using the 1/4 inch foot, is that the guide would get caught on the pin, especially these big-headed pins. Oops, that guy fell out. These big-headed pins, it would get caught on the pin and push the pin while I was trying to stitch. With the pins coming from the other side, now I can sew right up to that pin. It doesn't get in my way. And now I can pull that pin, okay? And get my, since that pin fell out. And then I can keep going around my edge till my next pin. Oops. And I like to use this little stylus because I can reach under there and pull my fabric if I need to. Okay. And then I would just keep going around. But having the pins pointed in the opposite direction makes it easy to go around the edge, and then you get a nice, perfect curve. I didn't even clip the curve when I was done. I got it all done really easily and no clipping of the curves, because that would be a ton of curves to clip. But having the pins go in the opposite direction lets me move so close to the pin, I didn't need extra pins in order to get this all done. I just needed my little rubber-ended stylus and just a few pins, and it turned out perfect. Okay.
What is the stylus called?
This is the Clover stylus.
I'll look it up and
Okay, Lori will look it up. This is my favorite stylus because it has a pointy end and it has this rubber end. And this rubber end is great because if you touch it with an iron, it won't melt. So I just really love this little stylus. But it is by Clover and perfect.
I'm looking.
And someone's asking, is that a ballpoint bodkin?
Is the ballpoint bodkin? Oh, yes. That bodkin we brought in is a ballpoint. And so you can put ribbons through with it. You can poke out ends because it has a nice round tip on the end. And I actually used it to stuff my teddy bear because the end that you pull ribbons through was just perfect to shove the stuff down in there. So that bodkin can be used for a lot.
All right, and now we're going to stay over on this side of the wall and talk about the Prism table runner. So the Prism table runner is from Timeless Treasures, which is Quilt Works, and it is a paper-pieced table runner. So these are amazing. You get the papers right inside. If you like paper piecing, she has really good methods. Try it out. So I'm going to pick my fabrics, and she has you cut templates, which is great. By pre-cutting your fabric chunks in the shapes that you need, they're bigger than you actually need. And sewing them with the paper, it goes fast, it saves fabric, and it makes sure that you have the right shape piece sewn at the right angle every time. So you don't end up with your diamond going the opposite direction and not have enough. If you've done paper piecing, triangles and stuff like that, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you get your triangles going the wrong way, then you don't have enough fabric and you got to take it out. By using the papers, we are going to start with the Quilter's Select Glue Stick, and we're going to glue that number 1 piece of fabric to the back of the paper, and then we're going to add number 2, stitch it and fold it out the same way you do other paper piecing. So you piece all of your diamond strips together with fabrics that are all the same, and this is probably not making sense when you look at this, but then you subcut them and put them together into these diamonds. So you can do four strips at a time for your 4 diamonds here. So quilted it up. Now sometimes you want to, on smaller projects, use scraps of batting, right? So getting your 2 pieces together, because you still want it to be all one piece when you lay it out in your project, but maybe you've got a couple of smaller pieces, I'm going to show you a product we have for that. So I've got a piece of batting here and a piece of batting here, and I need a square. And my lines are not always even, right? Sometimes I've got maybe a curve going here, something else going there. They're just odd pieces. One of the ways that you can make sure that they're going to match up exactly is you're going to overlap them. You're going to take a rotary cutter, and then you're going to cut one line down the middle. Now, this line does not have to be straight. You don't have to use a ruler, and you can kind of go around. Maybe you had a chunk out of this piece and an extra part on this piece. It really doesn't matter. I'll even give it a slight angle so you can see what happens. I've got a piece here, I've got a piece here, and I've got the two extra that I'm going to get rid of, and now these two go right back together. Perfect. Now I can sew them down with a triple stitch, or better yet, we have this product, and this is like fusible interfacing on a roll. This is from Marty Michelle, and you get 2 rolls in a package, and this is fusible tape. And this is one of the great ways you can use this product. You can use it for all sorts of things. But I'm going to iron this down, and now I have mended both of these pieces of batting, and I've got one, no stitches, no bulk, no nothing, one layer. So very good. I also wanted to share just a little bit about how to do the center. So I have got 8 different things coming together for this corner. You can stay right there. I will be right back. So I have done a quick, they're not diamonds, they're what are these called? Flying geese. But same idea. So in the book, she talks about, or the pattern for the Prism table runner, how to press everything. Now I'm going to flip these over. You know, there's always that press to the dark kind of rule. We're going to go halfway there. This gets pressed to the dark, this gets pressed to the dark, this gets pressed to the dark, and this gets pressed to the dark. But when I start piecing these together, this one would be sewn to this one. Then I am going to start, well, I'm going to continue to go that direction. If you'll notice, that gets pressed that way. So this is going to get pressed this way. It does happen to be light in this case, but that's just what we're going to have to deal with. This is going to go here. This one is going to get pressed this way. This one pressed this way. This one pressed this way. And this one pressed this way. And by doing that in a clockwise rotation or counterclockwise, but a rotation, then you're going to have less bulk right here in the center. So makes that connection right there in the middle lay nice and flat.
So Gail, 2 questions.
Yes.
They're asking for what is the pattern for the quilt behind you, and also the tape again.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone was asking if by ironing your batting, if it's going to flatten it.
Your batting shouldn't be thick enough that it flattens it too much. It doesn't take a whole lot of heat, steam, you know, just, you can always kind of fluff it back up by not pushing on it if it does flatten it a little bit, but most of the time you're going to use batting that's fairly thin, so that shouldn't interfere with that. This is called Marty's Choice Fusible Tape. And the pattern behind me is Drop. And this is from Charisma Horton. Aha, that's why, you know, hey, I guess she lives in Washington, so that says a lot, right? About rain. Okay. Yeah. Lost my train of thought. Where are we at?
Anika.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay. So our last embroidery design collection is from Kimberbell, and this is Anika's throw pillows. Of course, we don't always do exactly what they say, so they're not all pillows. But I did do the chevron pillow up here. I added some fabric to it rather than 2 rows of chevrons. But They also have a product out called Velveteen. So the Velveteen is just that really nice velour velveteen, and these come in pieces that are 12 inches by 24. They come in 6 beautiful colors. And this is going to be your base fabric if you choose. I used a velour that I had at home because I like the purple, and I put it on the back. So the chenille, as you do the pattern, is going to give you, some placement lines to put down your backing fabric. So there, underneath all of this cut chenille, is a piece of fabric that is going to be the base of your applique. And it puts down a lot of really nice stitches around the edge. You're going to be able to see those in this item. So you can use this as a straight applique and skip the chenille part. But it does give you all of these stitches around here, and Lan will talk a little bit more about her pillow in a bit. Then you're going to add the chenille over the top, and what that does is when you trim these out, you always have something as a base, and I used white on this, over that velour. So, my other one is here. And this is the flower. Again, I did the chenille, but I also wanted to talk just a little bit about the fabrics that I used up here in the blue on the chenille. So I have a base fabric here of light blue. I have a base fabric here of white and a base fabric here of kind of a mint green. But for the flowers up here, instead of 3 layers, because you add 3 layers of fabric for chenille, instead of 3 layers of all the same color, I had an ombre. I think ombre is my theme for the month. I use ombre fabrics in a lot of different projects. But I had this one. So this is the bottom of the fabric. Here's the middle of the fabric, and here's the top of the fabric. They go this way. And I put this down first, the light blue. Then I put down the medium blue. And then I put down the dark blue. And when you do the chenille and cut it, and you get all of these edges that ruffle through, you get an ombre look. So that's why I have different colors that show through on the flower, is 3 different colors of fabric. The white and the mint green were all the same. There's also something to be said about what fabrics that you use for chenille. In the past, I've done some different testing. So batiks do not make good chenille. Batiks are very tightly woven. They do not want to fray. Chenille actually depends on your fabric fraying when you are done. Here is that velveteen that is the background. Now, the best fabrics that I have found for chenille are those really inexpensive, see-through fabrics that you probably wouldn't use in another project. They look kind of cheap and thin. So those work the best. Also rayon. Rayon is going to drape really, really nice. Rayons make beautiful chenille. And they don't have to be solid. They can be colors, but you're going to layer up at least 3 layers, and you're going to just stick it down over the area that's going to get the little chenille channels sewn in, and let them do that. Now to tack it down and keep it in place, we have the Kimberbell paper tape, and that works really well for anything that you need to place in your hoop for embroidery or many different temporary positioning. And then the last thing, you're going to trim around the outside of the shape, the leaf, the petal, and then cut down the channels. So the last thing that I want to mention on chenille is it also is predicated on, or it works the best. It actually does not work if you don't, but it needs to be on the bias. If you know about fabrics, when you have a piece of fabric, salvage to salvage, straight does not stretch. That is your straight of grain. Well, your straight of grain's up this way. But they don't stretch. If you go corner to corner, they stretch. That's your bias. Whatever direction the channel stitching goes has to be on the bias. So if your channel stitches are going off in 45 degrees, then you can have your fabric squared on here, because this is going to be the stretch. When I did this one, I wasn't paying attention. I had my fabric straight across here, and I did my channel straight across there, and they did not ravel out. When the threads came off, I just had really long threads, and the rest, it just was a mess. Just trust me. It needs to be on the bias, okay? Because both of these are going to ravel out, but they're both going to stay put, and they're going to give you lots of little fringes. So that's how chenille works. And then,
Okay, so on my little pillow here, I'm going to do a little commercial here for some of my classes. One thing about the designs that you buy, they're beautiful. That's what attracted you to them, was the design on the front or on the back, saying, oh my gosh, I want to make those flowers. This is so cute. I love that. But sometimes we make all that and we go, well, I like that flower, but I want to change it a little bit. That's where you need software. Okay, and I do virtual software classes. I do Floriani, Total Control U. I do Embellish Maker. That's a new one. We've only been selling that one for a little while, and I know a bunch of you have that. So if you need a class, I do the Embellish Maker software class. I do Premiere 2, and I do Palette and PE Design 11. So all those classes are online. Now, why do you need the software? Because when you get a design and you want to manipulate it, and you want to take something out or move things around, you need your software. I digitize the word freedom here. You may not get to a point where you're going, I don't think I want to digitize, but I may want to cut stuff apart. Well, if you know your software, you can do amazing things. So I took the design, the flower design that's on the Anika CD, and I put one this way and took off 2 leaves, and one this way and took off 2 leaves. Now I used the velvet for the flower, and I stitched it down, and I used the chenilling lines as decorative lines on the velvet. And then the word freedom I digitized myself, and I needed my software to put this where I wanted, put this where I wanted, and bring the word in so it all matched perfectly. I had to take off the little dots that were at the end of the flower so that I could put my hotfix stones on there easily. And without my software, I would not be able to do this. So if you want to learn your software, I'd be happy to teach you. Okay, so 4 different classes, and like I said, they're all online already. Okay, huh?
yeah.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to go on to the oval crates, and where is that pattern?
It's over here.
Oh, thank you. Okay, we're going to talk about the oval crates. I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Gail has way more information on hers, okay, because she did all of them. I only did the top one. Okay. And these are really cute little crates. Now I want to tell you the way this is done, and I'll let Gail explain most of it, but this top piece and this bottom piece are hand sewn on. Lana hand sewed all the way around both of these. And those of you that know me know that that is a task I do not like. But however, because I don't hand so much, I actually did sit down and enjoy stitching around these. It was fine. It wasn't really that big of a deal. And they turned out pretty cool. And mine, I actually used Floriani Stitch and Shape for all my pieces here. Because the piece that Gail's going to talk about is only for the large one, so I use Stitch and Shape for all my pieces, and then I sewed my buttons on by machine. Okay, and so Gail will tell you about the rest of them because she did all 3 sizes.
I did. Before we get there, though, we do have a 3rd door prize. This is from Wendy. This is for Wendy. Oh my gosh. Sign Quilt. And if I have completely butchered it, I apologize. But let's get that name on there. Okay, this is the Missouri Star Quilt Company block book. So please, again, a private message and let us know how to get that to you, that we can get that to you. Okay, I'll tell you what she said earlier. What attracted me to this was the ombre fabric choices that they have done. Again, I said ombre is my my fabric theme today. So this set right here, actually, I was kind of thinking back to the jelly roll rugs. You do the strips, you sew the strips together, and I thought that that was one of the ways that you put this together. Until I got it home, opened up the pattern, and figured out that they did all of those blue stripes with the fabric. The fabric is printed with all of those blue stripes in it already. That's a whole lot less work, right? This fabric is kind of a skyline set, so I went to my local Quality Sewing and I found some fabric called refractions. Now this is the part that you'll probably see on the bolt, and this is the other side. So it goes all the way from light to dark, and that's your small, your medium, and your large tote. So no matter what ombre fabric you choose, you can do them like this. Now beware, some ombres are light to dark, and you open them up, they're light to dark on the other side. So you only get half of an ombre width-wise. But, so I've got the large size, the medium size, and the small size, and where you put the seams in here, they have decorations. Lana has her buttons. I chose to put those in the back. Okay, so mine are all on the back side. And on the body here, we have inner foam. That is a foam stabilizer similar to Annie Soft and Stable. It's the inside of my little one. And I have a similar stabilizer in the top and the bottom with just an extra layer of stiff.
Now, when you get to the name of the fabric again,
this one is Refractions.
Okay. And does it come in blue?
It does. It comes in about 13 or 14 colors, I think. We've got the whole line of them over there. Okay, on the largest one, Lana had mentioned that we do have this. It is the right size for the large crate. But that doesn't mean that you have to use it on, that you couldn't do the medium or the small, but you are going to cut into this and you are going to waste some. This stuff is super heavy. If you've used Inner Foam or Bosel's products before for placemats and stuff, this is different. Okay, this is a different product. It is cut in an oval, but it is a lot heavier. And you use 2 pieces on the top lid and 2 pieces on the bottom. Okay, there's 2 in a package, so you need 2 packages to do the large crate. You are going to put your lining fabric on one and kind of half bind it and fold it to the inside, and you're going to put your outside fabric on the other side and fold it in, and then you're going to glue the 2 together, and you're going to glue them because this is iron-on. Okay, so all you have to do is press. You add heat, and you're all stuck together. You sew around the outside and you've got a really, really nice stiff lid or base. So you are going to create your rim, bind it, and then you're going to put the 2 pieces together. And to aid in that, we have the needle puller. So the needle puller is 3-in-1 actually. I have a knot. I don't know if you guys have ever seen a knot done this way. I learned this a while back. So I'm going to go in a circle and I'm going to wrap 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to pull it down to the end, and that's, yeah. Once I learned that, I never went back to the kind of twisting thing because that never worked for me. Okay, I left off right here. So it is a really big needle, but that's okay. And if I can't push, instead of getting out a pair of pliers, I've got this little needle puller. So I've got a slot in the side here, and I can grab that and pull it through. I also have a thread cutter on this part, and I have a flat spot that can also be like a thimble that I can push with if I would like. And then I can grab that and pull. So that is the 3 uses for the needle puller. So I will finish getting my lid sewn on, and then my set will be done. All right. So
Can you show the knotting technique one more time?
I can. Let me get that out here. Scissors. I got them right here. Okay, let's get on white. Okay, I have a long, and I can do this single or double. Actually, let's do double. Okay, so I have double. And I have my needle. I'm going to go in a full circle, and I'm going to pinch this with my finger and thumb, and I'm going to wrap to the end of the needle 1, 2, 3, 2 or 3 times, and I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to slide it all the way down the thread to the end, and there's a knot. Very slick. Okay, you want me to do the last one, or do you want to start?
You're on first and then me.
Okay. Our last pattern, I think that's our last pattern, is December wraps. Now this is make it, wrap it, show it. This is our little nod to Christmas in July, right? I was going to count and let you know how many days till Christmas, and I don't even want to know. My husband starts, the day after Christmas and said, there's 364 days until Christmas. I said, thank you. Okay. So these are pillow wraps, and the idea being you can make a wrap and reuse the pillow underneath. So this is just going to make a sleeve kind of a thing, and multi-purpose the pillow for another use. Now I like a base in red, and that's because I can use it for Valentine's, 4th of July, autumn, Christmas, and probably a few other holidays in there as well. So this sleeve just fits over the top of the pillow, and I happen to do the 3 Santas with the little bells, simple applique, add some buttons, just sew the pieces down. I have fuzzy on polar fleece on the beards. See, I'm losing my words today too. and then just put the sleeve on there. So I have a sample or a technique, a demo on how to do this self-binding, because this is actually the binding from the back. They have a bind your own technique kind of idea in the pattern. So I will show that, and also how to connect that tube together back here very, very easily without having, so it's all finished on the inside. So do you want me to do that first, or do you want me to do that last?
It's up to you. I don't care.
Okay. Why don't you do yours, and I'll
Okay.
go set up at the machine.
All right, so again, I'm going to talk about software. This is a sewing machine pattern, okay? There is no embroidery here. You're going to do your appliques with your satin stitch. Everything's done with the sewing machine. And because I can digitize and I can play with my software and I know how to do this, this actually was very, very simple. It doesn't take a lot of techniques. So I scanned the ho into my computer and brought it into my software. It doesn't matter what software you have, it can do this. And then I used velvet up here. I used our Kimberbell velvet, but I digitized this so that I could stitch it out. While it's stitching out, I can do other things. So I did the applique. For the ornaments, I have Mylar in there. And Mylar needs to have a nice covering over it or it perforates and falls out. So I have Mylar in there and I have crosshatch done with monofilament thread. And then I put a beautiful decorative stitch over the top of the Mylar so that the ornament looks just really glitzy. And then just applique designs over everything. Now, if you're going, I'm not going to digitize, you can still put a crosshatch over Mylar and decorative stitches over that with your sewing machine. So anything that I can create with my sewing machine or an embroidery, I can create with my sewing machine. So since this was a sewing machine pattern, I created into an embroidery. And using your software, again, lets you go to the next level of embroidery. It lets you take things that you go, oh, you know what? I don't applique well. My satin stitches are kind of wiggly. I think I'll just digitize it. So there's a lot of great reasons to do that. I also used a twin needle and again, ruler work to do all my cross hatching and quilting around the outside of my my wrap. And so a lot of different techniques done in here, and this is like just super fun to create. You ready?
I am ready.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to take a little pit stop on the way. I had a viewer ask if they could see the inside of the clutch. So there it is. And there's this nice little gusset in there, so there's room for lots of stuff. And there's that little pocket, just like the one that I made earlier. So line as you like. There's also instructions in the book on how to put a zippered pocket in there as well. So you can use whatever frame you happen to have. I had one that was the right shape for the pattern, but you can also draft this edge to match your frame. So, okay, so we're gonna head this way. Now, you might recognize our little pocket here. I did go ahead and finish sewing that up. So we have our finished pocket, and this is going to be on my little miniature idea of a sleeve. Now, the whole pillow, is going to end up, you need twice as much as the size of the pillow because it's going to wrap all the way around the pillow. So I have my finished size piece right here. I am going to cut my lining for this wrap 2.5 inches wider than my base, okay? And I'm going to place these right sides together. Now they're the same length. It's just one of them is 2.5 inches wider. So right sides together, my pocket's in there. And then I'm going to give it just a little bit wider than 1/4 inch seam allowance. And let's give us just a little bit longer stitch here. There we go. Goes faster. Okay, so I've got one side done. Now I'm going to line up the second side. So it is going to make that a tube, and it is going to be uneven. Okay. Oh, okay. So what that does for me is when I fold this tube out, I've got more stripe than I have red. So that is going to create my binding. And if I do just about 1/2 inch here, my batting and my front is going to fill the edges of that binding as well. Then I can just stitch in the ditch right down here. But the second part of this is to show you how to finish it in the back so that you don't have raw edges showing. If I just did this, then I would have a bunch of raw edges. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to do the stitch in the ditch just yet. I'm going to fold this base right sides together and the back right sides together. So I'm just inverting this tube halfway. Okay, so my tube kind of goes this way. And I'm going to match up all of these edges. Now, I'm going to leave myself a place to turn it inside out, and I'm going to sew from here over to here. And when I do that and turn it inside out through the tube, I'm going to have everything finished. Before you completely turn it, I'm again going to fold down my edges, put my fusible web right here. You know, this will be sewn in a tube like that. Then when I turn it inside out, I will just take off the paper backing to that fusible web and put it through the iron. It'll be right sides together, and it'll all be completely finished. Now I would do it, but I'm out of bobbin thread. So, all right, that's what I have for today. Lana, do you have any final?
Nope, that's all I have. Just thank you for joining us today. We totally enjoyed having you with us, and we hope you have a great day, and see you in the store sometime.